the Wikipedia entry for the lab leak hypothesis was actually taken down,
We
right?
do have it to
It was
show.
fact-checked out of existence by what turns out to be a small band of motivated activists. Okay, so you I guess had this pulled up.
So there was for a brief time a COVID-19 lab leak hypothesis. Notice the phrasing, not lab leak theory, lab leak hypothesis page that very responsibly chronicled the evidence for the lab leak hypothesis. And it was taken down as a result of an incessant and very powerful campaign by a small number of people behind the scenes. There is some evidence that that campaign involved what would be called a water army being a Chinese phenomenon in which people are hired to make social media posts that sway opinion. So this is a known phenomenon, and there is...
I assume that happens all the time. I've never heard the term water army before, though.
I think it does happen all the time, and I think water army applies specifically to the Chinese version of it, which has been large scale. The Chinese have taken a very aggressive stance with respect to what is tolerated on the internet, and there is a battle over various platforms in which Chinese people exchange information under the radar. But in any case,
I guess I'm sorry. One thing that I do not understand about this conversation is it's, and I think I said this on the last episode, it's easy to try to smear those of us who are talking about it as if it's because we're anti-Chinese, we're xenophobic. And I think actually, if this does turn out to have been a leak as a result of gain-of-function research at this lab in Wuhan, that points the finger if you go back just a little bit more at American science and scientists and the NIH and such than it does to China. And not to say that, China, if this is true, would not have been involved in a cover-up in all of this, but the idea that this is, that this would make China look bad, it would make a lot of virologists look bad, and the whole program of gain-of-function research and serial passaging look bad, and potentially it would reveal to us the downstream effects of the moratorium that the Obama administration put in place precisely because of the risks of this research, and the mistake, presumably, that it was for the Trump administration to raise the moratorium. It makes a whole lot of people look bad, and I don't feel like China is really special in that list.
Well, it's becoming special because it is behaving in an obstructionist fashion with respect to the investigation of this hypothesis.
Well, but the WHO's given them complete cover then.
Right. I agree. This does not start out...
And in fact, I've got a piece of an interview here to share, as you wanted me to.
Okay.
On that topic.
Well, let's finish this out, though.
Okay.
So we've got... Let's take your challenge here and just notice, in a world in which we are going to decide that scientific consensus is the arbiter of what is a fact, then let's map the lab leak hypothesis question onto it and note the very dangerous circumstance we find ourselves in.
Okay.
Either SARS-CoV-2 is an escapee from the lab, or it isn't. If it is an escapee from the lab in Wuhan, then it suggests something about the danger of escapes, that you can effectively crash the world economy and, kill millions of people by accident because, maybe you were doing what you thought was honorable research, but that research, the cost-benefit analysis wasn't what you thought it was. Either that's true, or it did come from nature. If it came from nature, these things can potentially hop out at any time and crash the world economy and kill millions of people, et cetera, et cetera. And so the point is, the implication is either we shouldn't have been doing this research because the danger was way too big, or we should have been doing it sooner and bigger and more labs and all of that stuff. So the point is, the decision...
It's not just a conflict of interest. It's like, thrive or die. It's not just like continue to eke out a fragile existence or go down screaming. It's like you're going to either become the most important types of researchers in the world, or you are going to be recognized as having done the research that helped spur the world into a global pandemic and economic collapse.
Those who created this research program, and this was an international effort, those who created it are either the heroes or the villains of this story, right? Yeah. And the idea that we are now going to fight that out on the basis of, well, if it's a consensus and it's in Wikipedia, then it's a fact and everything else can't be discussed on social media. Well, what's going on, at Wikipedia? Well, when you look behind the scenes, you have people openly discussing the best tactics for sustaining the attack. That is to say, berating people to the point that they ultimately give up is being discussed as a tactic in the editing part of Wikipedia. So the point is, this doesn't have anything to do with facts. Right. This has to do with people who want that entry down for their own reasons, whatever they may be, shaping what the world takes to be a factual reference. Now, the fact is, I use Wikipedia all the time. It does. There's certain kinds of things that you can, go in there. If you want to look up, the chemical constituents of a particular, molecule, there's a pretty good chance you can find it in there. And the chances that that's subject to some sort of political wrangling are pretty low, right? Yep. But there are other things on which there's a lot at stake in which you just can't rely on it as a factual reference, and there's no mechanism. Hence, we're stuck with what we call misinformation. And the thing that scares me most of all is that the ratio of misinformation to high quality heterodox information is probably 1,000 to 1 on a good day, right? The high quality heterodox information is buried in a sea of garbage. And if you get people to focus on the sea of garbage and you say, wouldn't you like to be free of this 1,000 pieces of bad information? Wouldn't the world be better off without them? Well, maybe it would be, but you can't get rid of them without getting rid of the secret sauce, which is the 1 in 1,000 pieces that you absolutely need to chase down and doesn't have the defense of, hey, this is a fact and we all agree on it.